Streamlined Doodlebugs are no strangers on this channel. With their unique appearances and versatile uses across the country, they served a handful of low-density branch lines with style, with one of the most famous of these unusual railcars being Pennsylvania Railroad number 4663, which was given its streamlined shrouding in 1941 and was one of the first episodes of Remarkable Legends. Sometime later, after determining that there wasn't enough information on the two streamlined Doodlebugs rostered by the Chicago Northwestern, namely 9915 and 9926, I decided to dedicate an episode to the Alaska Railroad Streamlined Doodlebug as another entry to this rare class of motorcars. Now, although not as streamlined as the previous three railcars, we'll be covering a fourth example of a streamlined Doodlebug, as its exquisite looks were applied years before the Pensy's counterpart and attracted many passengers as part of a connector to this railroad's flagship train. This is the forgotten story of Lehigh Valley Doodlebug number 17, now known in this series as the fourth Streamlined Doodlebug. Like any Streamlined Doodlebug, the story of this railcar starts with its intended purpose as one of several new gas-powered railcars that can be found on various branch lines across the country. These motorcars, or Doodlebugs as they were nicknamed, were more efficient at carrying a small number of goods and people on low-density branch lines instead of using full-sized locomotives and coaches for the same run. Of course, given their various branch lines in eastern Pennsylvania and upstate New York, the Lehigh Valley Railroad was no stranger to Doodlebugs, as they purchased their first real Doodlebug exactly a century before this video was made, in late 1923. Based on initial successes, the Lehigh Valley placed an order for several more motor cars from EMC, or Electromotive Company, with the railcar to be focused on, number 17, being built in August of 1929. Although, no two Doodlebugs were the same, as even though many of them were powered by the same 600 horsepower prime mover, different companies would be contracted to construct the car body, as number 17 had its passenger shell constructed by Osgood Bradley, as it was designated as the BP class, probably for baggage and passenger. In addition to the various branch lines that the railcar likely served with its fellow fleet of diverse motor cars, 17 was reported to be found in service on the Rochester branch connecting the city to the main line near Rush, New York, along with local service between Flemington and Jersey City, New Jersey, and even local service from Jim Thorpe, Pennsylvania, all the way to Newark. Not too long after entering service, however, the Lehigh Valley, along with many other railroads, were suffering from the aftermath of the Great Depression, along with competition from automobiles, which ultimately resulted in many railroads to retire most of their Doodlebugs right then and there, in favor of less frequent mixed trains or abandoning the branch line altogether. However, the Lehigh Valley was one of a handful of railroads that still held on to all of their motor cars, as they saw the potential in these versatile machines that could connect the smallest of towns and industries just a few miles away from their main lines. This decision to keep their Doodlebugs was ultimately a wise one, as the railroad would soon combine two unlikely designs of passenger railroading, as the setback from the Depression also led to many railroads to develop streamliners. These state-of-the-art train sets were designed to win back customers with their high levels of speed and quality when compared to driving or flying. As not to be left out of the streamlining trend, the Lehigh Valley introduced their iconic Black Diamond service between New York City and Buffalo, New York, with streamlining and train set interiors designed by industrial designer Otto Kohler. In addition to the success from the Streamlined Express service offered by the Black Diamond and identical John Wilkes, the Lehigh Valley also offered a semi-streamlined secondary service along the same route called the Asa Packer, named after the railroad's first president, which utilized similar coaches and semi-streamlined Pacifics in a black and orange livery representing smoke and fire. As part of this service, a connector Doodlebug would be offered between Lehighton and Hazleton, Pennsylvania, as this official connector was to be given a matching black and orange livery as well as its own streamlined front, as this connecting service would be operated by none other than long-forgotten Doodlebug number 17. The motorcar received this makeover and entered service interestingly 1 year before the Asa Packer itself commenced service in 1938, and 3 years before the Pennsy applied streamlining shrouding on their railcar, as this Doodlebug primarily served the Hazleton branch of the Asa Packer, along with a few occasional runs outside of this branch, as a one-of-a-kind connection to a greater streamlined train set. However, the passenger services of the Lehigh Valley wouldn't stand a chance when compared to the development of highways, as well as the more famous and expansive passenger trains of the rivaling New York Central. Yet, the connection between Lehighton and Hazleton always proved to be one of the railroad's more popular branch lines when it came to passenger numbers, as 17 continued to serve the same line regardless of its intended purpose as a connector for a larger intercity train. But in an odd turn of fate, when several railroads were purchasing the Bud Rail Diesel Car, or RDC, in the late 40s, the Lehigh Valley also purchased just 2 RDCs to serve the exact same route as the Streamlined Doodlebug, essentially replacing the motorcar on its own route. Tragically, as the rest of the Lehigh Valley's branch lines either stopped serving passenger service or already had equipment available to run the handful of trains left, number 17 became surplus as the Lehigh Valley had no choice but to scrap the iconic Doodlebug in March of 1951, with all passenger service on the road ceasing operations just 10 years later. But all of that's not to say that this underrated Northeastern railroad didn't make its mark in history, nor that number 17 wasn't directly involved. Amazingly, a total of 7 Lehigh Valley Doodlebugs are still in operating service to this day, namely as heavily modified rail inspection vehicles for Sperry Rail Services, or Sperry cars as they're simply known as. Although none of the 7XLV Sperry cars are directly related to number 17's BP class, in which they don't have the same car body shape as 17, they still highlight the Lehigh Valley as an unexpected hero in track inspection based on their surprising abundance of surplus motor cars similar to number 17. As for its replacement, one of the 2 RDCs were later preserved at the Railroad Museum of PA in Strasburg, while the Hazleton branch of the Lehigh Valley that number 17 spent most of its life on is thankfully completely intact, as it sees freight service as the Norfolk Southern Ashmore Secondary. Even though almost everything but this railcar is still around to this day, it still contributed to the underrated legacy of the Lehigh Valley with its unique style, high reliability, and branch line popularity towards the tail end of the railroad's mighty history. Thank you again for watching. Credit for all the photos used go to their respective photographers, and if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe for more. Have a good day.